My title is Entrepreneurship, Thoughts from a Serial Entrepreneur. I'm going to start with a quick video just to put me in perspective so people understand me a little better.
I'm worried about little Dilbert. He's not like other kids.
What do you mean?
Yesterday, I left him alone for a minute, and he disassembled the TV, our clock, and the stereo.
That's perfectly normal. Kids take things apart.
Oh! The part that worries me is he used the components to build a ham radio set.
Oh dear.
Is that bad?
Normally I'd want to run an EEG on him, but the machine isn't working. It's worse than I feared.
What is it?
I'm afraid your son has the knack.
The knack?
The knack. It's a rare condition characterized by an extreme intuition about all things mechanical and electrical, and utter social ineptitude.
Can he lead a normal life?
No. He'll be an engineer.
No!
Okay.
There.
So he can't lead a normal life. He's going to be an engineer. I'm an engineer. I went to the University of Waterloo, studied engineering. I graduated in 1982, so I'm probably a little older than most people in the room. And then I'm an engineering nightmare because then I went and got an MBA. And so in the industry, engineers with MBAs are considered dangerous because we think we know a little bit about everything. And I'm no exception to that rule. Today, I'm not selling education. I'm not here to educate you. I'm selling inspiration. I'm hopefully going to inspire you to think about your company in a slightly different way, to ask yourself questions that you probably didn't even think you should be asking. That's my objective today. Selling for me is all about inspiring people and getting an emotional reaction. We're going to talk about sales later and what selling means and how to do sales. We'll talk about that. But let's talk about some inspiration. Let's talk about your company's entrepreneurship and just some random thoughts, random things that I've learned over the years. First of all, you have to define success. I think you're all here because you want to be successful, whatever that means to you, and it means different things to different people. To a hockey player, success means getting in the NHL. To an engineer with an MBA, success means starting your own company in high tech and getting acquired for lots of money or going public or doing something like that. If you're a fashion designer, success is becoming the next Gucci, something like that. So everyone has their own definition of success. Sometimes we're busy working away at something. We're busy with the day-to-day challenges and the day-to-day goals, and we haven't even questioned what is the success we're actually trying to achieve. It's not as simple as, I want to make a lot of money. So you have to ask yourself some questions, and I honestly believe that everyone in this room has had success at something. So I'm going to ask you all to repeat your past success. We've all had success at something, and every time you've been successful, there have been a handful of resources that you needed to be successful. I like to create this list. Your list might be different from mine, but you need to have some things. So if you want to be a great dancer, you probably need really nice ballet shoes. You want to be a hockey player, you need a hockey stick. You need some traits, some confidence, some motivation, all those kinds of things. You are entrepreneurs. You have started companies. By design, you have some motivation, some confidence, some drive that other people that aren't entrepreneurs don't have. So tap into whatever those things are. You need some specific knowledge about your industry, your product, your technology, your customers, whatever that is. You need a bunch of people to help you because there's not a hope in hell you're going to do it by yourself. So the question is, who are the right people? What is the right mix of people? And don't stand too close to the speaker. And then timing. Timing is very important. You might have a great idea. It might be 10 years ahead of its time. You might have a great idea that is 10 years behind the time. So timing is very critical in everything you do. How much of this stuff can you control? I would guesstimate that you can control all of it. Some of us think we can't control some of these things because we don't question how to go about controlling these things. But you can control all these things. I have this thing. Why don't I use it? Hey, so past successes. I want to tell you briefly about my two past successes, and Christina doesn't tell you about the companies I started that failed. We can talk about those too. But my two past successes are actually I'm very proud of them because they both have a record attached to them. First company, Abatis, which we started in 1997, was in the value-added internet services business. The internet was different back then. And the company launched its product in April of '99 and then got acquired in September of 2000 for what became known as the largest price ever paid for a private high-tech company in Canadian history. We got acquired for $1.3 billion. So the company was 31 months old, and we generated $2 million of value every day that the company existed. When you do the math, it's pretty cool. That's a great record. We started another company a year and a bit later. First, we all took a break. I went to Europe. We came back. We started a supercomputer company called Artiga Bay Systems right here in Vancouver. This company raised $24 million in seed capital, the largest amount of money ever raised in seed capital. And that was easily done because a lot of venture capitalists wanted to give us their money because we had just made so much money in the previous company. But that's not the record. The record was that we were acquired literally a month after we launched our product. We hadn't even made a sale yet. And the reason we got acquired is because we solved a very critical problem in supercomputing just by thinking of the problem in a different way. This problem had existed for 10 years in supercomputing. IBM, Cray, Sun Microsystems couldn't figure out how to solve this problem. We solved it in 10 months, built a prototype, launched our product at the supercomputer trade show, and then got acquired for $155 million when the company's only 14 months old. That was the second record. It was the quickest turnaround from starting a company to having it acquired. So I'm proud of both of those. Christina doesn't tell you about other companies that I've started, like Polar Blue, that we ended up shutting down after spending a couple of $1 million of cash. So those things happen. Sometimes you get it wrong. So here's just some random thoughts, random lessons, and random questions. Every one of my slides is designed to get you to ask yourself a question. Here's things that I've learned. I've learned that high tech is not about technology. Everybody thinks high tech, oh, well, you got to be a techno geek to actually be in this business. Actually, it's not true. Because the success of my businesses have always been about these things, which are the things that will make you successful. What is your value proposition? What's so special about what you do? What's your financial viability? Do you have a large enough market? Do you differentiate enough from somebody else? It's not good enough for you to be twice as good as IBM. You have to be 10 times better because you're nobody. IBM is IBM. What is your quality? What's your time? What's your service? It turns out that to run a high-tech company, it's just like running any other company. You need to have all these kinds of things. These are all true in your business too, from whatever perspective matters to your business. I also learned that for me, I had to be a business person, not a technologist in high-tech. And this is the same for you guys. If you're in the fashion design business, you need to be a business person more than a fashion designer, if you're the CEO of the company. Right? You have to make the business part the first, most important part that you deal with every day as CEO of your company. So, this is the slide that Monica got very upset at when I first showed this presentation. I have a go big or go home mentality. My attitude on business is that you should only start a business if you really want to make a big business. Well, this is my attitude. Monica got upset with me. I apologize to her. But here's my view. My view is that the guy who runs the 7-Eleven works just as hard as the guy who is the CEO of IBM. They work just as hard. But the guy who's the CEO of IBM is going to have all kinds of success that the guy who's running the 7-Eleven isn't going to have. So I think the guy running the 7-Eleven, if he's really good and wants to be an entrepreneur and do all these things, should actually dream of a chain of 7-Elevens, a chain of stores, rather than just run one store and kill himself his whole life and barely make his mortgage payments. That's what I mean by go big or go home. Think outside the box. See if you can make it bigger. You have a particular dream for your company. Whatever it is, I challenge you to make it 10 times bigger. And you could do it if you really wanted to. I don't care what business you're in, you could actually make it 10 times bigger. You just have to want to do that. And most of us don't even bother to think that thought. And I suggest that you do. Here's some go big examples. These are people who thought big. You know, Einstein thought big. Obviously, Jobs and Wozniak thought big. They invented Apple. George Lucas thinks big. Star Wars, Industrial Light and Magic. He's not just a director directing films. He thought bigger than that. and he created some amazing companies. George Lucas is also the guy who founded Pixar, right? Wanted to get rid of it. Steve Jobs bought it from him, and Steve Jobs then turned it into what we know today as Pixar, but it was founded by George Lucas. These guys all thought beyond the boundaries of what we think their job was or their career was to create something bigger. I'm challenging you to do that. For me, because I do lots of angel investing and start some companies and all this kind of stuff, in the high-tech world, we have certain criteria that we look at to decide, is this a good business? The criteria is probably a little bit different in each of your markets, but here's my criteria. I think some of these things will apply to all of you. Whatever your idea is, it has to be simple. Simple to understand, simple to sell, simple to explain. It has to be simple, whatever it is. People basically are dumb. We don't like complicated things. We like it to be explained to us like we're in grade 6, and so it has to be simple. I also believe that whatever you do, it has to be in a big market. The market has to be big enough to support you and your competitors. In high tech, what we look for is a market that is really huge. For us, it's like $500 million or bigger. But what we also look for, that's very important, is that not one person controls the market. Let me give you a good example. Desktop operating software, Windows, right? Well, that's a multi-billion-dollar market. Why don't we just make a new version of Windows? Well, the problem is Microsoft controls 92% of the market. So you're going to compete with this guy who controls the market. You want to go into a market that is big, but has no one big giant. It might have a bunch of players. When we started our supercomputer company, at that time, IBM controlled 20% of the business, Sun 20%, Cray 20%, HP 20%, Silicon Graphics 20%. They pretty much had 20% each. No one controlled the industry. And it was a multi-billion-dollar industry. And so even though we were just a handful of guys in Vancouver, we said, hey, you know what? We can compete with those guys. They're all billion-dollar companies plus. But we're going to do it anyway. Next, you have to have a compelling value proposition. And compelling to me in high tech is always 10 times faster, 1/10 of the price. Our supercomputer was 10 times faster than anything anyone else had built, and it was 1/10 of the price. So it was 100 times more value than anything anybody else had built. And so that's what you want. You want a compelling differentiation. If you're competing with someone in your market who already is established, you need to be compellingly different. You can't just be twice as good. You can't just come in a nicer color. It has to be compelling. You have to have a quantifiable payback. This happens to us every day. We go to buy clothes. I bought this jacket because it had a quantifiable payback for me. I bought it and said, it looks good on me. It cost X money. I'll wear it this many times. You know, I'll get some use out of it. It has value to me. I do that calculation subconsciously in my head. Same is true of every person who tries to buy your products. They have to have that mentality that I'm buying this and it has value to me. It has a quantifiable return on investment. I'm going to invest X. I'm going to get my money back some way through gratification. If when I was a salesman, I used to sell telecom gear, and I used to tell my customers, it's basically a printing press. You buy this machine from me, it costs 1.2 million. You get it up and running. You get your customers on it, and every month you send your customers an invoice, and they'll pay for this thing. You'll make $100,000 a month. It'll pay for itself in 12 months, and then every month after that, it's a printing press. Instead of printing money, it prints invoices, and people give you money. So that's how I used to sell it. Return on investment. Finally, innovation. In high tech, it's important to go into a market where the barriers to entry are low. There's not a lot of things stopping you. You can get in the market. But what's also important in my industry is that once you're in the market, you then need to create barriers behind you so that other people will not follow you. If you have a big market with a simple, compelling idea, I guarantee you within 6 months of letting the world know what that idea is, there'll be 6 companies trying to do what you're doing, especially in high tech. The word gets out, next thing you know, there's 4 companies in Silicon Valley doing the same thing. So you need to somehow get in the market, do something different that creates innovation that they can't easily copy. And sometimes it's as simple as branding yourself in such a way that it can't be. Look, Lululemon's a great example. Anyone could make those clothes, but they've branded it. There's something about Lululemon now. They're not just Lululemon, they're a lifestyle. They sell image, they sell a lot of things. The brand is very important. This is true of pretty much everything in fashion. It's all about branding. So how do you create something special? How do you create your special company? Here's the things that I think, as CEO, you have to think about every day. The more employees you have, the more you got to think of these things. One is your attitude. If you have a company with employees, the attitude that you bring to work every day as CEO will affect the attitude of your company. If you're in a bit of a pissy mood one day, everyone will be in a bit of a pissy mood that day. If you're in a good mood that day, everyone will be in a good mood that day. Everyone will take their emotional lead from you as CEO when you walk in the door, because you're the person in charge. And that's very important. You have to be present, but you also have to have the right emotional attitude that you're projecting to everyone every day. And we take this for granted. We don't think about that. We just show up at work and I'm having a miserable day and had to get my kids to school and I'm tired and I didn't sleep. And you bring this to work and that will rub off on your employees. And you don't want to do that. You have to bring this particular attitude that you can do anything and anything is possible, and we're going to do something new and exciting today to work every day. If you do, I guarantee you, your employees will have that attitude. I guarantee you something special will happen. Next, you need to find the wow in whatever it is you do. Whatever service you offer, whatever product you make, whatever you're trying to sell. When you explain it to someone, and it's real simple to explain, remember, that person should go, wow. If they don't go, wow, if they taste your cider and they go, wow, that's great, you've got an awesome product. If they taste it and it's like, okay, it's cider, it's like everybody else's cider, then that's a problem. You need to make it wow. It has to somehow create an emotional reaction in the person when you talk to them about it. So I question you all to go back to your businesses and say to yourself, what is the wow in my business? What is the wow factor? Get together with your team and figure out what's going to make your product, your service, your whatever, wow. Just stand up above everybody else. Very important. Next, you need to innovate. You need to think different, think crazy stuff, and you need to think the unimaginable. Henry Ford said that if I asked the people what kind of transportation they would want, they would say a faster horse. Right? Because they couldn't imagine a car. It's the days of horses. Well, what would you like in transport? I could use a faster horse, a stronger horse, a horse that doesn't need water. They didn't think of a car. Innovation is a car, to think something that no one else can think. That's what I challenge you to do. And here's an example of that kind of thinking.
I've got an idea that's going to straighten everything off.
No, you don't, Smokey.
Now, listen to me.
You've caused me enough trouble.
Listen, I don't mean any
I'm
harm.
sorry. I'm very busy here in the kitchen. Don't bother me. I'll do your work, but don't do mine.
Well, put it down.
I don't think you me in with the towels or something.
Hey, don't it?
No, Smokey, don't.
Oh, come on, one donut.
I haven't got enough. I can't afford it. I just baked 28 of these things.
Well.
I mean, after all, there's 7 officers I got to feed. And I got just enough to give them, 13 apiece.
You
take
what?
13 apiece.
13 apiece?
Yeah, if you take...
7 officers.
Yeah.
Each gets 13. You've only got 28.
That's right. I got 28 donuts and 7, 13. I got to give them to them.
7 13s are 28.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
It's got to be right.
7 times 4 is 28. Not 7 times 13.
7 times 4 is 28.
Sure.
7 times 4 is 28. Must go to a cheap school. I mean, 7 times 13 is 28.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'll figure it out here.
What's the matter with you?
Yeah, I got this all figured out. Look in.
You have?
Yeah, I figured it out myself.
Prove that to me.
I'm going to prove it to you. Don't worry.
It's ridiculous.
No, it ain't.
Oh, come.
No, it ain't. It's not ridiculous.
No sense to your argument.
It's just so.
Go ahead.
You'll see. Now, there were 7 officers.
That's right.
There's a 7. Now I'm going to divide and prove it to you. Now, 28 donuts.
28 donuts. Now, wait a minute. You claim the 7 goes into 28 13 times?
Mm-hmm.
Prove it to me.
Now, 7 into 2.
What do you mean 7 into 2?
7 will not go into 2, no matter how much you try.
We know that.
You couldn't even push that big 7 into that little bit of 2.
Certainly not.
Therefore, we can't use it, too.
What are you going to do with it?
I'm going to let Dizzy hold it. Dizzy, you hold that 2 for me, will it, please? Thank you. I'll use it later.
What is this all about?
Now, 7 into 8, 1. Now, we're going to carry the 7.
Carry the 7.
We're going to carry the 7.
So carry it.
It's getting a little heavy, so I'll put it right down there. 7 from 8.
1.
1. Now, a minute ago, we didn't use it, 2.
What do you mean?
We're going to use it now.
Use it.
Dizzy, give me back the 2. Thanks. Put it right down there.
So?
See? Now, 7 to 21?
3 times.
3 times. 7, 28, 13.
Oh, no, wait a minute. Come here. You ever go to school, stupid?
Yeah, and I come out the same way.
Oh, never mind that. Multiply this.
Yeah.
Put down 13 up there.
Put down 13?
Yes. Now, you claim that each officer gets 13 donuts.
They gotta get
Now, wait a minute.
Or else I
There's
go
7
on break.
officers? Put down 7.
7.
Draw a line.
Sure.
Now, 7 times 13 is what?
28.
Prove it.
7 times 3.
21.
7 times 1.
7.
7 and 1.
8.
2.
Oh, no. Come on.
It's not right. That's more time.
Well, it shouldn't come out right.
It's gotta come out right or I go in the break. That I know.
Just a minute. Just a
What do you
minute.
mean?
We'll add this up. Put down 13 7 times.
Okay.
We'll add it up. That'll
There's
straighten
1,
us out.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
No, wait a minute.
Oh, I forgot dynamite.
Yes.
I don't want to forget dynamite.
No, there's 7 officers. Now we're getting it. Now, you claim all this added up amounts to what?
28.
Give me the chalk.
No, you take it a slab will come out right.
Sure, there's something wrong. Yes. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21.
22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28.
Oh.
See?
Okay. So why do I show that? I show that because whoever created this skit thought the unimaginable and created something. And the math works. You just changed the rules of math, but it not only does it works in all circumstances. You can divide it, you can multiply it, you can add it, just by changing the rules of math. And all of a sudden, you've created something unimaginable. This is what I challenge you to do with your business. Whoever created that skit had an amazing amount of creativity and thought the unthinkable and created that skit. And I'm challenging you to do the same thing with your company. Don't be afraid to change the rules. Don't be afraid to challenge what you're taking for granted. Because if you do, and you say, well, I can't build a faster horse, and you challenge that thought, you'll invent a car. Next thing, as CEO, you are the leader of your company. People often ask me, what is leadership? What is that magical, special stuff that we talk about? Sometimes it's difficult to identify. When it's not present, it's easy to identify it's not present. And for those of us that aren't Republicans in the room, I remember that when George W. Bush was president, people disliked America. Americans wanted to leave America. Right? The leadership at that time rubbed people the wrong way. So there's something about leadership. Leadership starts at the top and permeates throughout an organization. I know I had a meeting on Monday with a company, and the CEO was in a really crappy mood. And he had his executive team together, and I was there at the meeting. And within a matter of minutes, the meeting was basically a crappy meeting. And it went on for 2 hours, and we were all kind of pissed off we were in this room for 2 hours and having this meeting. And it was really a consequence of leadership. And I don't blame him. You know, he had stuff going on, he was stressed, all this kind of stuff. I'm just trying to use that as an example that leadership matters. So what is that magical stuff? What do leaders have that other people don't have? I get asked this question all the time. Difficult question. But I have one specific thing that I think is a critical difference. Leaders have a vision and can identify when the vision is gone awry. We grow up in an environment where we go to school and people say, let's teach you calculus, here's 10 problems, go home, come back with the 10 answers. Let's teach you financial statements, here's 10 problems, come back with the answers. We live in an environment where people tell us what the problem is and we come back with the answer. What a leader does is can identify a problem, because when you're running your company, no one is sitting there telling you, this is why it's not working. All you know is it's not working. You can't make payroll, or sales are not what they should be, or whatever. Something is wrong. Something is not going according to plan. What a good leader can do is identify what is wrong. You don't necessarily need the answer. Hopefully you've got a great team of people to help you figure out the answer. That's why you have vice presidents and directors and heads of R&D and all, chief designers. All these people help find the answer. But it's incumbent upon you, the leadership of a company, especially the CEO, to constantly question, where am I going? What is my vision? Am I getting there? And what is not working? Ask yourself this question every day and fix it. That's what leaders do. Next, it's not enough to be a good leader. You have to have a complete team. I like to use this example. This is a Formula One Ferrari race car in the pits. Now, if you ever watch a Formula One race, it goes on for an hour and a half, and the winner wins by 1 second, literally 1 second. You know, they've been racing around this track for an hour and a half, and maybe there's a 1 second difference between the winner and second place. So as you can imagine, if the car goes in for a pit stop, what they typically do in a pit stop is they fuel the car up, they change the tires, and they wipe the screen of the driver because he's got bugs and stuff on his screen. Or they pull this little piece of plastic off so he gets a fresh piece of plastic to look through. They have to do this in a pit stop. Typically what happens in Formula One, if you ever watch these pit stops, the car comes in, it stops. In 9 seconds, they change all 4 tires, they fuel it up, they clean this mask, and he's going again. 9 seconds. If it takes 11 seconds, they might lose the race. Because everybody on average takes about 9 seconds. So you need a really good team to pull this off. And you see this guy here. This guy's job is to take off the right front tire. What do you do for a living? I take off the right front tire. See this guy over here? This guy's job is to put on the right front tire, the replacement tire. What do you do for a living? I put on the right front tire. Specialization. All right? So in your company, you have a VP of marketing, specializes in marketing. You have a VP of R&D, specializes in R&D. They all need to work together. Because if this guy calls in sick one day and they have to bring in another guy to pull off the right front tire, it might take 11 seconds that day to do the pit stop and we'll lose the race. So you need a great team of people, each with their own specialty: marketing, sales, product management, design, finance. You need a complete team. You need all these skills. Sometimes you have multiple skills in one person. But you all have to work together to achieve something. So in your company, you need to ask yourself, is my team complete? Do I have all the bases covered? Do I have a really great person taking off the right front tire? Or is it the wrong person? Next thing, encourage creativity. This goes without saying, you need creativity from all the people in your company. What's interesting is that some people come to work and they just come to work and they want to get their paycheck. Other people come to work and they're fired up and they want to contribute and they've got ideas. You need to encourage that creativity in people. Everyone has some level of creativity. The environment you create will actually encourage that creativity. Creativity comes in all flavors. It can be a math genius. We had in Abatis, we have a patent, a very critical patent, for how internet packets are filtered and identified as they pass through the internet. So we patented that. And it's some really weird math that this guy from mainland China who worked at our company, he's a mathematician, figured it all out. His name was Renwall Li. And I asked Renwall many times to explain it to me. But it's on such a level that I couldn't get it. I never could. But he was a genius at that. He had this creativity at math that no one else in the company had. Other companies have creativity in design, like Johnny Ivey at Apple, who creates the look of the Apple products. It's genius. It's his own particular genius. So once you've got these people and you want to encourage their creativity, the best way to encourage that creativity is to empower them. People, to me, are like trees. You hire them, that's like putting them in the ground, and then you feed them. You got to give a tree water, you got to give a tree sun, you got to give it all these things for it to grow. People are the same way. You need to empower them. Once they're in your company, the way to get the creativity out of them is to make them feel empowered. I'll give you an excellent example. This is from my MBA class, actually. You have a clerk working at the Bay in the lingerie department. And one day, you go in there to buy some lingerie, and you see this clerk, and you go, "Hi, Ethel, it's me. You remember me from high school?" And she goes, "Hey, how are you? I haven't seen you in 10 years. You spend the next 10 minutes catching up on your lives." She goes, "It's so great to see you. I'm buying some lingerie for my daughter." You buy it, and you leave. But it says at the counter, no refunds without a receipt. It actually says that right at the counter. It even has it on the receipt, no refunds without receipt. So you leave, your daughter hates the lingerie, absolutely hates it. You go back the next day. "Hey, Ethel, it's me again. My daughter didn't like it, I want to bring it back." Great, where's your receipt? You know, I can't find it. Really? Ethel's in a bit of a dilemma. Company policy says, I can't give you a refund. But I know you, and I know you bought it. So, what kind of organization is this? I'm sure this has happened to you before, where you're talking to someone on the phone and say, I'm sorry, I can't do that. And you go, well, why can't you do that? And you get pissed off at the person. Oh, because we're not allowed to do that. You know, it's company policy, right? Okay, what I'm talking to you about is, does Ethel feel empowered? If Ethel works at a corporation where she knows she's not going to get in complete doo-doo for doing a refund, she'll do a refund because she knows you, she remembers you, she'll make a note about it. It'll all be fine with the management. If, on the other hand, she works for a company that is very strict on its policy, has no latitude, she'll feel very uncomfortable doing it and she won't do it. What message is the Bay sending to its customers? Would you rather, if you ran the Bay, wouldn't you rather give her the latitude and the empowerment to give the customer an awesome experience? Same is true in your company. You have to empower the people to give your customers an awesome experience, whatever that experience is. Next thing you need to do, this is my favorite slide in my whole deck, because I say this probably 5 times a week in various meetings, is that the quality of the decision is directly proportional to the quality of the debate. See, I didn't even have to look at this slide. I believe this with every fiber of my soul. You should go to your company every day. And every day when you're sitting having coffee with your exec team or with your co-designer or co-owner or whoever it is that is in the core group that is responsible for the leadership of this company, you should be having quality debate. And to me, quality debate means you can think and say anything, even if it's stupid, radical, weird idea, because you should be creating and thinking these unimaginable ideas. You should put them on the table. You should hammer them out. You should discuss them. You should have a quality debate about them. You can even argue and scream at each other. I have 2 partners that Christina mentioned, Adam and Paul. The 3 of us have been together for 20 years through multiple companies. Trust me, we have been totally pissed off at each other at times. But at the end of the day, we all respect that the other person has skills that we don't have, has a perspective that we don't have. And the 3 of us together are just freaking awesome if we can work together. And so it's like a rock band. You get together for an album, everything is great, and then they start fighting. But then they get together and do another rock album, and then it's great music. So it's the same concept. I challenge you to go back to your companies every day and have quality debate. Because great people do great things, and great debate leads to great decisions. And there's not enough of this happening. I meet with so many companies where I sit there with the exec team and I say, well, why is this your vision? And you know, your underlying assumption for your business is this. And I don't even believe that to be true. Prove that to me. Prove to me that anyone really even gives a crap about this thing that you're telling me your entire business is built on. And when you ask them to explain that, they can't, because they just drank that Kool-Aid and said, well, that's obviously true. Well, why is it obviously true? Tell me why it's obviously true. I just don't know. I don't get it. Question it. No one thought, you know, when BlackBerry was the thing and everybody had a CrackBerry, remember those days? Apple comes along with an iPhone. BlackBerry never imagined that they would be dethroned. Never imagined it. But along comes this company who just thought different and completely crushed their business. You could do the same thing if you think different. Think different. As a matter of fact, that used to be Apple's slogan, think different, back in the 80s. Let's talk a little bit about sales. There's a book I read in high school called Death of a Salesman. It's actually a play. It's a great play. I just like the title for my slide. The salesman never died. And everything in life is sales. I'm selling you right now. I'm selling you my Kool-Aid. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully you like it. Hopefully I'm a little entertaining in the process. But everything is sales. Absolutely everything you do is sales. I tell everybody that even when, if I knew some of these things when I was 16, I would have had a better social life because I would have been more comfortable asking girls on dates. But I wasn't, because I didn't know how to sell. So let's talk about sales, right? First thing is I want to ask you a question. Do you get a thrill from selling? You get a no there. Is it a rush and is it addictive? For me, absolutely. Imagine negotiating to sell your company for over $1 billion. That was a total rush. The name of the boardroom we were in was called the Magellan Boardroom, which is why our partnership is called Magellan Angel Partners. We named it after that boardroom. Okay? For me, selling is a rush. I get off on the idea of trying to tell someone why this is awesome for them and getting the order, getting the sale. That just turns me on. I get excited by it. It's a rush. I honestly believe that to be a great salesperson, you have to love that thrill of selling. I honestly believe that. Doesn't mean you can't sell without that thrill. You can. But to be awesome at it, you got to kind of love it. It's true of everything in life. You got to kind of love it to be awesome at it, right? And I also believe that to be a great CEO of a company, you must love to sell. Because when people ask me, what is the job of the CEO? I say, your job is to sell. You have to sell the investors that this is a good company to invest in. You have to sell the customers that this is a good product to buy. You have to sell your employees that they should come to work and kill themselves for you every day and give you twice as much as what you're paying them. You have to sell. This is what CEOs do every day. You're selling. So, if you pick up a sales book, there's 150 of them in Chapters or library or wherever you want to get one. They basically all say the same thing in a different way, and they tell you that sales is about objection management. You're trying to sell something, people object to it. Well, it doesn't have the right interface. Oh, well, I can manage that. We'll create the right interface for you. It's not the right color. No problem. We'll make it in that color. They object to certain things about your product, your service, whatever, and you manage those objections. And there's a process you follow to manage the objections. And you can read 1 million books on this, and I'm not going to bother explaining any of it because it's all boring and none of it's true. At the same time, it's all true. You have to do those things. Those are the sales process things that you've got to do. So I highly recommend you understand objection management. But that's not what selling is. Selling is emotion management. Selling is that I come in and I need to convince Christina that she needs one of these. You have to have one. So I need to create some kind of emotional connection between this and Christina. The iPhone is a brilliant example of a product that has created emotional connections with people. People have to have an iPhone. I don't know why, but they have to have one. I have to have one. Right? It's an emotional connection. This is true of all products. Even if you're selling at the corporate level and you're selling the chief information officer a huge hunk of software that he's going to put on his servers, it's still emotion management. You're trying to get him to be emotionally involved in the decision. This is the most critical part of sales. And people don't think about this most of the time. If I wrote a sales book, this is all I would talk about. So, what else is important? It's not just about emotion. You obviously want to invoke emotion, and we could talk for hours about how do I get a certain emotional response from a person. But I do believe that everything a CEO thinks about every day should be, how do I sell something? How do I sell a product, sell my investors, sell something? You should be selling. You should be in sales mode all the time. And every time you meet someone, it's an opportunity to sell. And every time you meet someone, it's an opportunity to engage them in an emotional response to what you want, whatever emotional response it is. The most base example of this is you go to a bar, you're single, you go to a bar, and a guy is looking at you, and you're looking at him, and da-da-da-da-da. It's emotion, right? And you're selling. You got your best dudes on, you're looking good, the guy's selling, he's looking good. You are selling emotion to each other. You don't even know each other yet. You haven't even met each other. You're looking at each other across the room, but there's a lot of emotion involved. And there's a sales job happening before you've even talked. Hopefully, one of you talks to the other, and then the sales job really kicks into high gear, because now you're trying to get an emotional response from this person, because what are you selling them? You're selling them yourselves. I'm a great person. You should get to know me. That's the most base sale of all time. This is why I said I wish I understood all this stuff when I was 16. I would have had more dates, right? So obviously you got to do all these things. You got to qualify your buyer, make sure you know. But I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm going to pick a couple of things that are really important. Are you selling razors or razor blades? They give the razor away for free, and the reason is because they want you to buy the blades, right? They want you to keep buying the blades. Google gives you a search for free, because they want you to come back for all the other services that they offer, right? Google doesn't sell search, but that's what they're known for. By the way, I saw a great t-shirt. It says, "I don't need Google, my wife knows everything." I really like that t-shirt. But anyway, next thing, you have to find common ground with your customer. And there's a book called Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive. It was written in 1988 by an individual named Harvey Mackay. It's the only sales book of all the ones I've ever read that I recommend. I love this book. It's all stories, powerful stories that make you think. But he said this, knowing something about your customer is better than knowing everything about your product. And that really hit me when I read that. It's very true. That's why I say you got to learn to drink beer. Your customer likes beer, you like beer. Your customer likes wine, you like wine. Your customer likes scotch, I love scotch too. Right? You need to have an emotional connection with your customer. Right? You got to be prepared to sell what you don't have. And my slogan to that is, of course, we have it in pink. It doesn't matter to me. Even if you don't have it in pink, you tell them it's available in pink. It'll just be 3 months. But it's going to take you a while to get it. We did this all the time in telecommunications. We promised yeah, our product will do that. You go back to it and go, holy shit, guys, how many months of R&D to get this feature out? Oh, that'll be 8 months. Holy shit, we got to do it in 3, right? That's okay. And then things happen. Make things happen. That makes it all exciting, makes it all possible. Next, this one's really important. You need to sell to Vito and not Seymour. Vito is the very important top officer in the company, the person who has a checkbook and can actually give you an order. Seymour is the guy who said, oh, that's really interesting. Can you come back next week and show me this? Oh, that's great. And maybe next week you could email me the files so that I could review that. And you go, sure, I'll do that. And then he says, hey, that was great. How about we meet next week and I'll bring in so-and-so and we can talk about this. Don't mess with this person. This person always wants to see more. This is why I call him Seymour. He just wants to see more from you and see more. It's another meeting, another this, another that. Avoid the Seymours. There's lots of these people in organizations who will waste your time. You need to find the decision maker, the person who can actually make a decision, can write you a purchase order, whatever. Of course, you got to work the process, objection management, and of course, manage emotions. And then the tricky part is to change the conversation from here's what my product does, here's why it's great, and then you have to switch the conversation to I'd like an order. It's an emotional shift that you have to do. And most people are really, really excellent at this part or sections of this part. Some people are really good at managing the process, but they can't ask for the order. They get nervous, they choke, all kinds of things happen. My best advice for you is this. Remember that this is all about invoking emotion. You've invoked emotion up to now. Now you want to switch the conversation to a different part of emotion. As simple as, hopefully I've convinced you that there's a lot of value here. And you can see the value of my product, and it's going to get paid back in 12 months, and blah, blah, whatever your conversation was. You say, what's it going to take for us to turn this into a partnership? What's this going to take for me to actually bring this product inside your company? What's it going to take? What are we going to do? Right? Some kind of way to get an emotional connection. I was speaking with someone who's in the publishing business, and they're trying to do a book for a big oil company. And they did all this stuff. They're talking about all these great things. But then it came time to say, well, you know, you guys need to give me an order. And this particular person had challenges, you know, asking for the order. And I said, well, the CEO is trying to do a book about the history of this giant oil company that's 100 years old, right? You need to somehow get an emotion out of that CEO. So how about this? How about, you know, the people who founded this company 100 years ago were complete visionaries. Right? What you're doing here today is the same thing. It's this massive vision for the future 100 years of the company. And this book is going to be awesome because it's going to capture that first 100 years. Now, what have you just done? You've told the CEO that he has some kind of emotional connection to the founders of the company 100 years ago because they were visionaries and so is he. And you've created an emotional connection. And now you're trying to sell him. You're trying to get him to have an emotional reaction to actually give you the order. Yeah, we should do a book on the 100-year anniversary of our company. That's what we should do. It's a great idea. How much? 2.6 million? Sure. We'll pay for it. Right? Of course, never forget your customer once you get them. Some people get an order and then they never see their customer again. That really upsets customers. You have to hold their hand. Be nice to them all the time. Women are better at this than men because women remember to send Christmas cards, things like that. My next thing to tell you is don't reinvent the wheel. Everything you're trying to do has been done a million times before. I don't mean specifically your product, but running your business. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are mentors, there are advisors. There's, people that you get on your board of directors. There's whatever it is, whatever skill you need, it's out there. People have done this before, and I highly recommend that you go and get those skills. Rather than try to reinvent it yourself, go ask. People basically want to help other people. This is what I have found. In my years, if I had a problem, I had a question, if I picked up the phone and asked someone, they usually made time. Didn't matter how busy they were, they made time to answer your question, because people inherently want to help you. So take advantage of that human characteristic and ask questions, find a network, and don't reinvent things. Get help from all these people that are out there to help you. Next, never lose sight of the real task. At the end of the day, you're building a business, and you can't lose sight of the real task in hand. And every day, your tasks are different, and every day, you have different objectives, different goals, different everything. So never lose sight of the real task. Every high-tech company that I meet with does these three things, and you probably did a version of these three things when you were planning your company. They do a business plan, they do a business presentation, and they do a whole bunch of pro forma financial spreadsheets. Excel is my friend, right? They all do this. And if I were to ask, well, why do you do these things? I get really strange answers sometimes. And I honestly believe if you're doing it for a reason that is not effective, then you can't actually do it well. So I ask people, like, why do you bother doing a business plan? And some people say, well, I do it so that I can understand the markets, or I can understand this, or I can understand that. All these things are true. But if I want to distill it down to one simple truth, right? Make it simple so that anyone can sell it and anyone can understand it. These are my simple truths. The reason you do a business plan, right, is to show that your idea is fully baked. Bottom line, I've thought of everything. And that encompasses everything you're going to tell me. Oh, I got to look at the marketing strategy. I got to look at this. You basically want to convince yourself that you've thought it through. It's completely baked now. Once you hit save, it's out of date, because the market's changed already. The competition's changed already. Everything's changed the minute you hit save. But that's okay. That's the nature of our world, highly changing world, and we need to be highly adaptive people. But you still have to believe in your heart that it's not half-baked. I've actually thought it all through. That's really the only reason to do a business plan. Once you've hit save, you never have to look at it again. Until next year, when you want to review things and make sure you're still on target, or reassess your company, or look again at the vision, all those things. But basically, that's what you're trying to do. Make sure it's not half-baked. Then why do you do a presentation about your company? The only reason, really, is to sell. You're selling something. Usually you're selling, in high tech, your idea to an investor. So they will give you that first $500,000, give you that first $1 million that you need of seed capital. So that's really why you do a presentation. So if people do a presentation because they think some other objective other than selling, that's the wrong presentation. The presentation is solely a sales job. And financial spreadsheets, the reason you do financial spreadsheets, bottom line, is to prove that it's a business and not a hobby. At the end of the day, it's going to make money, because you will not raise a dime of capital if it's not going to make money. And lots of companies start off with friends and family's money, right? So you get some friends, your parents, whoever, and they invest in your company. And that's how you get your first $250K. Well, some of those people may be investing purely on emotion, just because you're their daughter and they're going to invest in you. But an investor, an angel, wants a return. He's taking a risk that you're going to turn his 100,000 into $1 million or more. That's what he's hoping for. So you need to prove that it's actually a business. It's actually going to make money. It's going to grow. It's not just one 7-Eleven store. My vision is much greater than one 7-Eleven store. One day, there will be a chain of these stores. Think of the guy who started 7-Eleven, right? He had one store, but he said one day there's going to be 7-Elevens everywhere. They're going to be on every corner. The guy who started Starbucks, he didn't say to himself, I'm going to have a coffee shop down here. There's a bunch of coffee shops that are mom and pop coffee shops, right? There's 1 billion of them. But one guy said to himself, I'm going to dominate the world. He went to Italy, had a great coffee, and said, oh, wow, They know how to make coffee here. And he decided he's going to mass market that. That became Starbucks. Just because he wanted to. But there's a lot of other coffee shops. There's millions of them. But they didn't have that vision. So the other thing investors look for in high tech is a particular formula for success. So Guy Kawasaki, is from Garage Technology Ventures down in Silicon Valley. I stole this slide from him. This is one of his slides. So Guy says that high-tech success is T to the power of 3. You need a great team that can execute, you need a compelling technology or a great value proposition, and you need traction in the marketplace. And he says it's that simple. That's the formula for success. And I kind of agree with him. It is that simple. That is the formula for success. If you're an investor, that's what you look for. But if you're a CEO, this doesn't really help you much, does it? I mean, of course you know you need a good team, you need a good technology, you need the marketplace. This doesn't really tell you how to actually go about executing anything. This just tells you what the end result is. So as an investor, it's a good thing, but you're a CEO. You need to know how to execute. And execution is not a very definitive Rubik's Cube. It's a very soft thing. And so I invented my own formula about execution. Execution, if you want to have a great company, you need a particular mix of these things. And they all come in different flavors, different colors, different whatever, depending on your company, your industry, your technology, where you are, your service. It affects these things. But you need to have planning, passion, and people. You need to plan your business for the future better than anybody else. You need to have passion for it more than anyone else. And you need the people around you to execute all the different pieces of the business. If you have these 3 things, and you are an effective leader, you will build a great company. There's only one piece that's missing: money. You will need money. Because at the end of the day, money is the ultimate resource. Before you have money, you have other resources. You give people stock options, you give them this, you give them that, but eventually you need money. So it's a particular combination. This is my formula, yours might be different. I believe these are the elements that you need to execute. And you need to bring these elements to your job every day. And when you talk to your mentors, your advisors, or whatever, you should be talking about, how do I do these things? How do I change my leadership skills? How do I become a better leader? How do I get passion into my business? What kind of people am I looking for? What should they be doing every day? How do I want them to act and think, participate and grow and empower? How do I do all this stuff? Because it's a sales job. You're selling all these concepts all the time. Finally, if you did all that, how do you know you're doing a good job? You know, I have often asked, I sit on the board of some companies, and you get this presentation, and they tell you this, that, and the other thing, and I go, you know, guys, I got to be honest, I have no clue where we are. Like, I understand this and I understand that, but I don't have any real concept of where we are. And at the end of the day, in all businesses, there's only 2 things that matter, and only 2. And everything else in your company, everything on your spreadsheets, everything on your financial statements, everything on your PowerPoint presentations gets distilled down to 2 things. And this is how you know what your bearings are and where you're headed. And those things are time and money. You have to track the variance. It's not good enough to come to a board meeting and tell me, you know what? We're $500,000 under budget in marketing. Because someone would say, well, that's great, we saved $500,000. And I'd say, why the hell are we $500,000 under budget? Because if sales are $2 million below revenue because we didn't spend the $500,000 in marketing that we were going to spend, then that was a pretty stupid decision. Sure, you're under budget, but it was a dumb decision. So it's not enough to say we've saved this money or that money. You have to measure yourself as a variance to a plan. So you build a plan, and then you have to say to yourself, what's my variance with time and money? Is the product 6 months late? If it is, why? If I spent too much money here, not enough money there, why? You had a plan. Track your performance. Stay away from the speaker. Track your performance based on the variance to that plan. That's what's important. That's what's critical. That's how you know how you're doing your job. And that's how you can effectively communicate that to your board of directors, your advisors, your investors, whoever, as to your performance. And of course, there's lots of variables here, but I honestly think everything distills down to these two things, time and money. These are the two resources that you cannot exhaust. You have a limited amount of. So, what do I want you to feel? I'm getting near the end of my presentation now. This is the very first photograph that my family is aware of my father when he landed in Canada in 1953. So we think this is the first photograph of my dad in Canada. Of course, I can't prove it, but we don't have any other photographs, so we honestly all believe this to be it. What do I want you to feel? My father had a grade 2 education, grew up in a small town in Sicily. And yet he had more street smarts than anyone I've ever met in my life. Didn't have any academic smarts. He didn't go to college. He had to start working out in the fields when he was 7. His father died when he was 2 months old. So this human being impressed upon me that anything was possible. He impressed upon me that I should go get an education, because that was the ticket out of just being, lower middle class for the rest of my life. So what's important here, and I hope what you take away, is that every day you make decisions about your life. Every day you can decide who you want to be next. And every day you have the empowerment to change your own reality. And you can do it. You can do anything you want. And all you have to ask yourself is, am I thinking about my life different from everybody else? Because everybody's thinking, well, okay, I got to go to work. I got to pay my mortgage, got to pay my rent, got to do this. Stop thinking about that stuff for a small fraction of time each day. And ask yourself about your life. When I was 33 years old, I was a salesman. I lived in Toronto. I owned a house in Little Italy. I had no mortgage. I was making great money as a salesman. And I'm 33, and I have an expense account. I'm taking my buddies out drinking, expensing it. Who cares? Life was wonderful. Plus, I was single. It was great. Just as an added twist. And yet, I was not very happy. I wasn't very happy. And it wasn't that I wasn't happy because, money doesn't buy you happiness and all that kind of crap. No, that wasn't it. It's that I hadn't achieved some kind of success for myself, whatever that was. And at that age of 33, I said to myself that before I'm 43, 10 years from now, I want to be in a situation where I'm independently wealthy. Not because I want the money, but because I want to be able to do whatever the hell I want to do. I want to work. I work harder now than I did when I was 33. But I do the things I love to do now. And Christina will tell you, John has no time for anything. He's so bloody busy. But I love to do it. Sometimes I'm overwhelmed by it, but I do the things I love to do. So that was my objective at 33, was to become independently wealthy by the time I'm 43. When I sold the Battis for $1.3 billion, I was 42 years old and 10 months. I just squeaked in. But I did it. I achieved my objective. And part of doing that was to take some risks. So I had this great job that paid great money, but I wasn't happy. So I had to give up the job with the great salary and the great perks and the flying around and the business account and travel expense. I had to give all that up to do a startup company. And that company failed. And so I went and did another one. And that company was a Battis. It became a success. And my life changed from that point on. Now, you've all taken the leap of being an entrepreneur. I challenge you to make that a phenomenal thing for yourself. That's what I'm asking you to do. And that, my last thought. Since this is a room full of women, Nike was the goddess, not the god, but the goddess of victory in Greek mythology. And this is the temple of Nike in Greece. And what's great about Nike is they have, as a company, the best slogan I've ever heard. The absolute best slogan ever. Just do it. And that's what I'm asking you to do. Just do it. And since you're women, it's perfect, because you're all goddesses. So just do it. Right? It's the perfect way to end this presentation. Thank you.